Hey guys, it's Tanya from My Fancy Design Shop, and today I'm going to go over some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way as I was creating my new Holiday Cheer brush set for Procreate. A quick rundown of this set is it comes with 95 brushes for lettering and digital art. When you download it, you're going to have 3 different sets. So the first sets are the brushes, and this includes my blenders and texture stamps. I also included my glass pen, my sparkler and plaid brushes, and some fun, creative, seamless pattern brushes as well. Next is the shape set, and it has a bunch of Christmas and winter related stamps. So you have like the truck with the tree, some wreaths, bells, poinsettias. You also have like the snowman, snowflakes, ornaments, mittens, reindeer, which are my favorite, and a bunch of gifts. And you can just actually combine all of these together to make a really cool digital art. And then next is the words. So these are all hand lettered phrases or words that I hand lettered myself in Procreate and used my watercolor lettering brush. So it has all the watercolor features already built into it. You just need to add color and blend the colors together. Okay, so why don't we get started? Best way to use the stamps is I would use the color black, and let's just grab an ornament. What you can do is just stamp it on there. You also can change the size on the bar over here, or easiest way is you stamp it on, hit that arrow, make sure you're on uniform, and resize it that way. I find that a little bit easier instead of playing with the size bar over here. Now, a trick that I've learned is, now this watercolor texture was hand painted by myself. So I hand painted that with watercolor and I brought it into Procreate to use it as a texture. Now it will have a more lighter, let me alpha lock this layer, a lighter look to it. I'm gonna grab, let's see, a monoline brush, and I'm going to show you. So do you see how pink that is? Okay, it's a little bit lighter compared to what I chose in my color wheel. Now what you can do is duplicate that, and that's a little bit a deeper color, more saturated and intense. So if you wanted a more intense like color, I would probably duplicate the layer. You know, let me move these over to the side so you can see the difference. I would duplicate the layer and then merge them together. And so you can either have a lighter watercolor effect or a darker one. We're going to work with a darker one for now. And the best way to add your color to keep the texture is to make sure alpha lock is on that layer. You're going to grab a monoline brush. You can use an airbrush, whichever you prefer. And you're just going to add in your colors. And then what you can do, there's 2 different ways you can blend these. You can go up to the adjustments menu, go to Gaussian blur, layer, and then slide your Apple Pencil to the right, and you can see it slowly blend together. So you can do it that way. Or what you can do is click on this pointer. This is the smudge tool menu. And you can grab the texture blender brush. I like to have the opacity a little bit lower, and you can play with the size. Let me zoom in for you. And what you can do is blend it that way. So with this, you have a little bit more control as to how you want it to be blended. So it really depends on how much work you want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick to the Gaussian blur just to make this go a little bit faster. And then what you can do then is add more color. Now this is when my new brushes, let's see, my texture stamp 2 and my blender come in handy. So what I can do is I can grab that texture stamp 2 and still on that layer, that's alpha lock, let's bring in a different color. So let's say we want to do like a blue. What you can do now is just stamp. I would just lightly stamp it on. And then under the smudge tool, you want to grab that texture blender. And see, this is when I would probably go lower on the opacity. And I would just blend in very light circular motions. Again, I mean, this is how I use them. Everyone has their own preference and style, so you just got to play around with it. So just use this as a base and figure out what works best for you. Okay, so now I'm going to keep this color. What you can now do, and this is all optional, is go to the adjustments, go to hue, saturation, and brightness, layer, and at the very bottom of your screen, let's move my iPad up a little. Okay, you're going to see all of these settings, and this is when you can kind of play around with the colors a little bit more and get the look that you want. So I changed the hue a little bit. I bumped up the saturation a bit and the brightness as well. Okay, so next what you want to do is add a layer above. You want to change that layer setting to overlay. Click on it and clip and add a clipping mask. And with the color black and the dark edge blender, you just want to go over the edges. You don't have to worry about being super clean with it, because what we're going to do is blend it out a little. So just add some of this around. And with this smudge tool, again, with that pointer finger, you're going to grab the dark edge blender and you're just going to blend it in a little bit. So this way you're going to smooth the transition. Next, what we're going to do is add another clipping mask above it. You're going to grab the color white, and with the highlight blender, you're just going to add in some fun highlights. So you can go like around here. And then what you can do is to smooth that out a little bit more, add a blur to it. That. And then last, you're going to add another clipping mask. I know I'm a big fan of clipping masks. Go to overlay, and with the color black as well, you're going to grab that texture stamp. And you're going to stamp it on, and that's when you can click on that arrow and you can resize it and move it around. And what you can do then, even if you want a more intense texture, you can duplicate that. So this is what I'm going to show you. This is without the texture. Stamp, and this is, well, this is before, I'm sorry. This is before the texture stamp, and this is after. So it just adds a little bit more to it. So that's the best way to use the stamps. The same thing is with the words as well, that you would just stamp it on. I wouldn't, let me just grab this one. Add these all in a group. Now with the words, I wouldn't duplicate them because they're pretty opaque already, but the same thing applies. You would want to alpha lock it and add in your colors like so. I'm just going to do a really quick look for you guys. So you want to add in your colors. You can add a blur to them. And then that's when you can add the dark edges and everything, just the same way that we did the ornament. Another fun way to use the stamps is, I didn't want to go overboard, and I wanted to give you more creative freedom, I guess you'd say, on how you wanted to, I guess, add detail to them. So let me give you an example. So there's a snowman, very basic. Just has the hat, the arms, that's it. Then I have one that's called Snowman with Details. And that's where I drew the details with like the eyes, the nose, the scarf. But I wanted to give you the option of having that or having just a basic shape or being able to draw in your own. And this is when the glass pen comes in handy. So what you want to do is in the eraser tool, you want to grab the glass pen right there. And now you can just kind of draw in your details yourself. And what's great about using the glass pen is that you're going to keep those rough edges to mimic the watercolor. So that's another great way to use the glass pen, not just for lettering, but as for the eraser tool. So you have that jittery rough edge. Next, I'm going to go over the paper texture. So it comes with 10 different colored metallic paper textures that I actually hand painted myself with Witt's Watercolors paints. I'm going to show you. So here's just a few of them. And then it comes with my new watercolor paper texture as well. So I'm going to show you some fun ways on how to use these. One way is to use them with the stamps. So let's just pick a wreath and you're going to stamp that on. Now there's two ways to work with this. What you can do, let's just grab this gold one. You would want to stamp it on, and do you see how this still has like that watercolor effect to it? So there's some dark and lighter areas. You can add the paper texture on top and then change that to a clipping mask, and you might see some lighter areas and darker areas. That's because it is, the metallic texture is going off of what you have here. So I mean, it does give a dimension, but if you wanted one opaque color, then what you can do is, let's just turn this off. What you want to do is tap on the layer, hit reference, add a new layer above, and make sure this new layer is selected. And what you're going to do is you're going to grab the color here in your color wheel, and you're just going to drop it in. Let's hit black again. Okay, so you see how it took the whole screen, but you're going to see the color drop threshold, and what you're going to do is adjust that to where it's only covering the area that you want. So you're just going to keep doing the same thing around for your whole design. Okay, so after you're done, what you're going to see is you have now an opaque version of your watercolor stamp. You see the difference? So what you can do now is you can delete that layer or just turn it off, whichever you prefer, and you're going to keep this opaque version. Next, you can add your metallic paper texture over it, change that to clipping mask, and you see you have a more intense color. And you can also adjust the size. So if you want, say, a more finer texture, you can make it smaller, you can make it bigger. So do you see how that kind of changes it just a little bit? These are just the tiny details that you can change with this. So I thought this was a fun way to use some metallic textures, and I would definitely take advantage of using this reference option to make an opaque version of the watercolor stamps. Again, it's all preference and the effect that you want, but I just want to share that with you. Next, what I'm going to show you is, this is a fun thing. I just bought a really cute reindeer. It was a very glittery reindeer decor from a store, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's going to look amazing digital. And this was, I bought it after I made this set, so it just kind of felt right. But I'm going to grab my reindeer and I'm going to click on that. I'm going to change it to reference, add a new layer above, and I'm going to drop in my color. Okay, I'm going to take away that first layer. And next, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use the gold, and I want to use the silver one. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add in there, and that's going to be a clipping mask, okay? And then I'm going to add the golds, and this is how you can get two different colors for a clipping mask. I'm going to just slightly overlap that because we can erase it. Okay, so we have that there. Now you see how it's kind of overlapping, looking kind of weird. What we then can go back in is with our eraser tool, and you want to make sure you're on the right layer. Can kind of just erase it and clean it up a bit. Okay, so after I cleaned up the areas by the ears and the antlers, you just have this fun glitter metallic look with the two tones. So you have the gold antlers and the silver body. And I just thought that was super fun on how to use the paper textures and the stamps together, and not just being stuck with one color, but you can do multiples just by moving them around, erasing, and just, you can use different clipping masks. You can put them on the same one. Just like here, if I combined it, you can see you could layer them on the same clipping mask if you wanted to. It would just be hard to erase the areas that you wanted. But again, play around with it. And I just thought that would be a fun way to create some digital Christmas art. Same thing goes with the words. Again, say if we have Noel right there. I'm going to show you again, if we just kept the texture like that. Let's use the green. I feel like we should use red, but we're going to do green because I have it right here. Do you see how it's light and dark? Okay. So again, what we want to do, reference, drop in our color. And you want to just bring up the threshold then so it's the whole thing is black. And then add your clipping mask, and then you can resize it. So that's just a fun way on how to use the textures again with the lettering. Even though it comes with 10 different colors, what you can also do is go to the hue, saturation, brightness and change that as well. And you can get even more colors. See, now we have like that red. So that's another fun way. Next, I want to go over the seamless brushes. So we're going to go to that brush set right there. And these are just fun. So you can use these as backgrounds. You can use these on shapes, whichever you prefer. My tip is, all right, let's use a gingerbread. I would make sure, you can use your Apple Pencil, but I find that it's easier to use your fingers and just color in the whole entire canvas, okay? If you want to keep your finger down the whole time. If you don't, let's see, especially like with these two, if you don't, I'm going to show you the difference. Like with the plaid color, if you lift it up, yeah, the pattern's going to continue, but wherever you overlap, it's going to mess with the color. So that's mainly for the plaid brush and the wooden brush. The other ones should be okay. So what you want to do is you can add it to the whole canvas. And then I find it's easy. You know, let's just grab one of the shape stamps. Or you know what? Let's use one of my watercolor stamps. Okay. On a new layer, we're going to reference that and drop in our color. Okay, and then you know what, let's change that color to yellow. Okay, so I have my shape in the background. I have my seamless pattern. Next, what you can do, this is why I suggest you using your whole canvas to add the pattern, is you can size it down to get a smaller shape out of it. Right, so we have that there. And then you want to hit clipping mask and you just have a fun pattern to it. Again, you can use a different colored background. So easiest way is to change that under adjustments. See. Okay. So that's just another way to use the seamless brushes. Again, you can always just use them just as a background. You don't have to put them on a shape or anything. Just having it as a background is super fun. Another great thing is if you add this here, all right, let's adjust it a little bit. You can add the metallic texture to it. So, you know what, let's just grab this red again. And we're going to fit that to the screen, and we can even adjust it a little bit more. Hit clipping mask. And then you have like a fun texture to it. So another option on how to use metallic textures. Let me use, you know what, let me see what the silver looks like. Because that wasn't resized before. Yeah, that's better. So you have just like a fun metallic background to it. Another fun way, my friend Nikki from Wild Fox Design Shop gave me this idea. She said, you know what, I bet you can use your glass pen and use the green texture over it and make it look like garland. And it really does. So say you just drew something really fun like this. You can now add the green metallic texture. We're going to bring it all the way to the top. And then what you can do, we can even duplicate it so we can cover the whole thing and add it as a clipping mask, and there you go. So you have a fun, like a garland look with the glass pen and the paper texture. So I thought that was a nice little fun trick to use. The brushes. Okay, and next I'm just going to show you, one of the lessons to show you is how to use the seamless wood brush. So when you grab it, and you grab like a color, you're gonna be like, oh, that's just really light, you know, doesn't really look realistic. And again, do you see how if you lift up your finger, so you just want to make sure you keep your finger on there, color the whole thing at once. So the trick on how to use this brush is to have a background color. So let me show you that. So I'm going to fill the layer below it, fill layer, and then of course because we use the same color, it's not going to show. So you want to use like a lighter color on top, okay? Again, you're going to say, oh, that does not look realistic. Well, that's when you can change the color and to play around with it. So I'm going to bring that saturation down. I might lighten it a little bit. I'm going to go back to my background color and I'm going to play around with that more. And I'm going to just mess with the saturation and brightness again. Maybe I want like a darker wood. So that's how you can play around with it, okay? To get that fun wooden background effect. Now to use this as a clipping mask, what you then can do is with, you want to grab the color that you mainly want to use for the background just to make it easy, and then you can adjust the color a bit. But let's do that wooden tree. You know what? I'm going to make sure I'm in uniform. Okay, and again, you want to hit reference, add a layer above it, drop in your color, and then you're going to get rid of that layer. And next we want to do is, with a lighter color, you're going to grab a seamless wood brush. Again, you're going to cover the whole entire canvas, okay? That way you have more flexibility on where you want the details. So this is when we can, what I would suggest is changing that to a clipping mask. Oh, you know what? Make sure you're on a new layer. Don't make the mistake that I did. Okay, here we go again. Doing the seamless pattern on top again. Adding that to a clipping mask, okay? Hitting that arrow, and then this is where you can adjust where you want the details to be. You can move it around, you can make it smaller. So that's why I suggest having it, making sure it's covering the whole canvas before. Okay, so let's just do that for now. And then what we can do is then play around with the colors to make it look a little bit more realistic. Okay, and there you go. So you have a fun wood effect design. And what's great about this is then you can go in, I'm just gonna use the color white, and with the glass pen, you can just let it right on top. So, great, Merry Christmas. There you go, something super fun. And you know what, I actually did a similar design, and I thought it would be fun to add some color to the top. So what I did was I grabbed, let's see, the star. I made sure I was on different layer. And I just added that right there to add some color. And you know, because that is a little bit light with the watercolor texture, I did the whole reference trick. And so it looks like that star is a cutout. So everything I showed you today is basically the stepping stone to creativity. Play around with it. You don't have to use the brushes the same way that I do. It's just fun to see what you could do and then going from there. I've heard a lot of people are trying to design their Christmas cards with these, which are really great. I've used my sparkler brush and my wreath stamp on a chalkboard mock-up. So possibilities really are endless. And I would love to see your designs. If you're on Instagram, please feel free to tag me at My Fancy Design Shop. And if you want to grab the set for yourself, visit the links down in the captions and you can find them there. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to talk about this set and brainstorm any ideas if you have any questions. But again, have fun with it. That's the main thing. I wanted to create a set that was fun, user-friendly, and not too overwhelming. And that's how I kind of design a lot of my sets. Something that's very so So yeah, enjoy. I hope you really like this tutorial, and hopefully I can plan some fun project videos as well in the future. Thanks again.